prospects of lifting arid and semi-arid counties from neglect to economic prosperity are now real. Political leaders from the region are convinced this can be achieved through the newfound political influence and the new constitution. The leaders were unanimous at a Pastoral Parliamentary Group conference in Mombasa that political muzzle and devolution of resources will save the region.
With over 70 members of parliament, 17 senators, including the majority leader of both the Senate and the National Assembly, as well as the Speaker of the Senate, it is very clear the pastoralist agenda could not have a better platform in government. If there is an opportunity for the pastoralist communities in our country, I think this is their moment. And you have the influence that you need and the positions that you require to influence and direct government policy. And if you don't, please look for somebody else to blame.
The two-day PPG conference was funded by the National Drought Management Authority with support from the European Union. Leaders who occupy key positions in the Jubilee government include Aden Duale, Leader of Majority in Parliament, and Ekwe Ethuro, Speaker of Senate. Leaders from 14 ASAL counties attended the conference to discuss the current circumstances of pastoralist people. Ethuro said devolution has created hope that future governance in ASAL will be in line with their needs and aspirations.
Devolution brings with it the hope that future governance in these areas will be much more in tune with our pastoralist needs, because it will be planning at the county level and not at the national level, where we felt we had lost out. Moreover, with the Equalization Fund and the principle that public financial management as a whole should be driven by a concern for equitable development, among other things, the future to us looks much brighter than it has done for a very long time.
Cabinet Secretary for Planning and Devolution, Ms. Anne Waiguru, said the vast potential of ASAL remains largely unexploited.
I have embarked on a restructuring exercise in order to ensure that we deliver on this government agenda. The ministry has been granted great responsibility, and among the functions are the emergencies and disaster management, Northern Kenya and other arid lands development policy, as well as institutions such as the National Drought Management Authority.
She said the Directorate of Northern Kenya and other arid lands development will be mandated to ensure existing gaps are dealt with in order to accelerate development and investments in ASAL.
Devolution presents many opportunities for pastoral regions, including an approach to governance which can be more accustomed to the unique characteristics of the region, and the potential to facilitate pastoral mobility and natural resource management through inter-county linkages. Pastoral systems do not correlate neatly with administrative boundaries, and therefore strong relationships between the national government and the county governments will be essential in managing these dynamics.
The leaders were unanimous that pastoralism should be mainstreamed into the national development agenda by putting in place adequate infrastructure that will promote and upscale this pastoralism into a profitable venture. The leaders noted that pastoralism has better potential to cushion residents in the arid and semi-arid counties against hazards such as drought and negative effects of climate change.
Livestock is gold. If you put the right infrastructure, it is more profitable than any money that you do with irrigation. Our highlands, the places where there's a lot of water next to the rivers, our irrigation so far have not succeeded. Ahero, Burra, all those ones. And yet, immediately people think of, it's a drought, why don't you irrigate?
Recent research has valued the pastoral livestock trade in the Horn and East Africa at nearly $1 billion US. Here in Kenya, IGAD, FAO, and the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics now believe that livestock contributes much more to GDP than previously thought. In 2009, this contribution was valued at Kenya shillings 320 billion.
Deputy President William Ruto, who was the chief guest, said the government will include the pastoralist narrative in its policies because ASAL constitutes 70% of the Kenyan landmass.
Arid and semi-arid areas constitutes 75% of the landmass of our country. 20% of our population resides in these lands, and 60% of our national livestock and wildlife populations is raised there. Clearly, therefore, pastoralist interests are substantial in every conceivable way. You cannot think of Kenya without thinking of the pastoralist communities.
The tone of these leaders had changed from the community being marginalized to absolute optimism.
Title of sessional paper number 8, which is realizing our full potential, is echoed in the theme of this particular meeting. Achieving pastoralism full potential through policy and constitutional implementation. It signals a fundamental shift in our language, away from a narrative of loss and lamentation to one which we recognize and celebrate the wealth of pastoral areas that have been overlooked for far too long.
A study by IGAD has revealed that over 80% of the beef consumed in Kenya is produced by pastoralists. The MP for Tarbaj, Mohamed Elmi, argued that more infrastructure should be put in place to promote the livestock industry.
The mindset in terms of the marginalization has been a reality, but it's no longer a necessity. With the new constitution and devolution, in my view, it's no longer a necessity. We shouldn't be talking about marginalization anymore.
The main thing is to tell them this constitution gives them the best chance. The best chance. And as members, they represent over 10 million people. It is in their hands to use the new constitution to really create the potential, because there's so much suffering. There's no water, no roads, no education, so much poverty.
It is time to make a complete paradigm shift and shun the mindset of perpetual lamentation and instead be part of the team that shall seek lasting solutions to issues affecting pastoralism.
If we see our challenges with new eyes, that see opportunity, promise, and potential in place of adversity, desolation, and despair. Marginalization and exclusion must give way to participation and inclusion. We must generate a positive energy among ourselves as leaders, which will cascade to our communities to create a better environment for development.
Former Speaker of the National Assembly, Francis Ole Kaparo, says the organization has articulated the failure by the government to address issues of insecurity in ASAL.
Rampant insecurity and unwillingness or inability of government to stop. Think about it. Has the situation changed? Think about Baragoi, think about Tana River, think about Mandera, think about Garissa.
The Deputy President challenged the PPG leadership to take it upon themselves and tackle cattle rustling and insecurity in the pastoralist areas, saying insecurity was a major impediment to rapid development in the ASALs.
I'm sure the Director General of the National Police Service, himself being a pastoralist, we now have no choice than to sort out the insecurity in all our pastoralist areas. The minister in charge of internal security is a pastoralist. The chairman of the parliamentary, Mr. Kamama here, is the chairman of the National Security Parliamentary Committee. And 3/4 of the members are pastoralists. So this insecurity, ladies and gentlemen, we must sort it out. Because we have the men, we have the women, we have the political machine, we have the government machine, we have the security machine to sort it out. And it is in our hands.
The Inspector General of Police, David Kimayo, told the leaders that politicians are the biggest facilitators of cattle rustling. Mr. Kimayo called for strong enactment of laws against cattle rustling.
The legislation that we have, the legal regime that we have is very weak. And therefore, it was the government out that was the policy of small arms and light weapons, out of which the review or overhaul of the total Chapter 114 laws of Kenya should be reviewed or overhauled so that it can carry a maximum penalty in terms of the person who is in legal possession of that particular firearm. that a Pastoralists Parliamentary Group, you need to have that particular capacity. The capacity to lobby amongst other legislators, amongst the senators, amongst the leaders of the country, the government itself, so that you have a wider space, especially the bigger percentage that you have. Lack of political goodwill, both from the leadership and the public. These are things that we need to look at it critically. But it's being followed by other aspects, that we are losing a number of our livestock, through the same means of death of animals or harassment. It's also estimated that another whooping 15 billion was lost to cattle rustling and banditry between 1999 and the year 2000 in pastoralist areas.
Youths who participate in the vice are usually blessed by elders before they commit their acts. He asked the leaders to resolve that no politician will interfere with issues of insecurity, including cattle rustling. The PPG was established 15 years ago to address peculiar issues affecting pastoral people in Kenya. Other issues have been the provision of necessary services such as reachable education and health facilities, rampant drought, and use of famine relief as a political weapon.
So there were people who not only were making profit out of drought by acquiring and distributing famine relief, but it was also being used as a political tool and an instrument of dehumanization and abuse, insult.
After 2 days of deliberations, the Pastoralists Parliamentary Group made the following resolutions. On security, the Pastoralist leadership commits itself to peace and to using its position in Parliament and in the county assemblies to promote pastoralist issues. Individual members of the Pastoralist Leaders Forum, PLF, commit themselves to joining the Amani Forum. The pastoralist leadership calls for new thinking and a new paradigm in the management of the police, including the adoption of new tactics and the retraining of personnel. The pastoralist leadership strongly recommends that the distribution of security resources and personnel be matched with needs on the ground, the Kenya Defence Forces be deployed at border points, the Kenya Police Reserve be restructured and sensitized appropriately by both the national and the county governments. Programs to brand livestock be accelerated with adequate resources provided to the county governments to implement this. Compensation mechanisms be operationalized for those displaced by conflict in pastoralist areas. The establishment of county policing authorities be expedited and adequately resourced. County security committees should have a local component. Honorable Asman Kamama, in his capacity as chair of the Parliamentary Committee on Administration and National Security, to present a report to Pastoralist Leaders Forum members on progress with respect to the above within 3 months. On the Pastoral Parliamentary Group, the Pastoralist leadership resolved to restructure the Pastoral Parliamentary Group PPG in order to accommodate the creation of both the Senate and the county governments and to strengthen its capacity to deliver. A Pastoralist Leaders Forum, PLF, will meet twice yearly with participation from both the PPG and the new Pastoralist County Leadership Forum, PCLF. The latter is a new structure comparable to the PPG at the county level. PPG officials were elected at the end of the meeting. Elections of PCLF officials will take place after participants return to their counties. A permanent secretariat will service both the national and the county structures. Among other things, the secretariat will document the PPG's experience since its formation in 1998. A number of thematic subcommittees will be established.